Welcome to Complete Edition, the podcast between a PlayStation Trophy Hunter and an Xbox Achievement Hunter. This is episode 16. I'm your host, Compulsive Nerd, and I am joined by AJ. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for tomorrow because my OLED is going to arrive.
Oh, you got an
So-
OLED, dude? I totally missed this. This is so awesome.
Yeah, I ordered an LG C1 and I'm getting it for my room, and it's good timing. I mean, I'll be playing Halo Infinite on it when it comes out as well, so it's going to be like the full setup. It's going to be awesome.
Dude,
And,
tag me when you talk about it because I want to see your reactions. Like, it definitely was a big game changer for me because, like, there was this time period where HDR was starting to come around, and like during the PS4, Xbox One generation, and they were like, HDR is so many more colors and all this stuff, and I still feel like it's kind of a gimmick, but if it is implemented correctly, it does look really good. But my whole point is, whenever I got an OLED, I was like, this is a change in colors. This looks incredible. Like, this is definitely game changing. And when people like dismiss OLED, I'm like, oh, you've never seen it, because this is not a gimmick like some things are, because they're totally very obvious gimmicks. Like you're like, I want to convince myself that this isn't that, but it is. You know what I mean?
yeah, I was going to say that on my on your Series X, I assume it's similar for PS5, but there's all these like new features with the next gen of consoles in terms of 120 FPS. The Xbox Series X supports variable refresh rate as well. HDR, Dolby Vision, all that stuff. Right? There's probably some that I'm even forgetting, but for me on my TV right now, it's just a like 1080p 60 FPS like LED TV. I'm pretty sure. So when you go to that menu where it like tells you everything that's enabled, it's just a bunch of red crosses. Like, nope, your TV can't do this. Your TV can't do that. Your TV it can't do like anything. And then with this new TV, it's like the complete opposite, where it can do like absolutely everything. It can do 4K, it can do 120, it can HDMI 2.1, VRR. Like, it's got HDR, it's got Dolby Vision, it's got everything. It seems so. It's exciting.
It's very exciting. I'm so excited for you. And like, dude, I can't, like, you're going from 1080 to 4K, so that's big, but then you're also just getting this incredible color range that's going to be so awesome. Plus you're about to play Halo Infinite, and I'm going to play Halo Infinite, so that's like super fucking pumped. Like,
Yeah,
we should do a spoiler cast on that for sure.
Yeah, we should. I want as well. Like it, I think the 120 FPS mode in Halo Infinite's at 1440p as well, which is pretty good. I think
That's
it's even for the campaign, which is surprising. So I want that 120 for, especially for multiplayer, because just having double the frames is such an advantage in terms of reaction time, and like it is just an absolute advantage. And I know that from playing like Counter-Strike. I've got, I think, 144 hertz monitor, and I could notice the difference with like my PC upgrade, and it's like, oh god, every game has to be like this now. So I'm glad that I've got the console, I've got the PC, and now it's the TV, and everything's sort of fallen into place, hopefully. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And then the Game Awards are rolling around, and sadly, I will not be watching them the night of. I will probably be putting my phone on like do not disturb, because I'm going to a concert, and then I'll just like go home after the concert. It'll probably be like midnight or so, and I'll just watch the awards like straight through until like 3 a.m. and then I'll probably get back like on Discord or something. But I'm still excited as hell for the Game Awards.
Yeah, same. I'm gonna watch it live, I think. Maybe get in a call with a couple of friends to sort of just make fun of it. I like
Right.
doing that kind of thing. I like doing that at E3 as well. It's nice just to sort of live react with people and just take the piss and all that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I do that with my friends too, like a watch party. It's like the most fun thing to do. That's like the way to do it, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about Halo as well. I have to bring up the infamous Fantasy Critic League.
Damn it.
Because reviews dropped for Halo Infinite's campaign and overall, and it's at an 86 on Metacritic. It keeps going between an 86 and an 87 today. So, we sort of debated it on the show before, whether you'd get points from counterpicking it, And right now, you're going to lose 16 points from counterpicking it because it's way over the 70 out of 100 that it needed. And yeah, I mean, but to be fair to you, I said it was a mistake to counterpick it. Other people did, but I think when we discussed it on the show, I think you also knew that you'd made a big mistake by that point, that it wasn't gonna
Yeah, I
work
fucked
out.
up. And now I've played through all the Halos, so there's like a little bit of a part of me now that's grown, and it's like, you idiot, you dumb idiot, you year ago Cole. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, it's such a consistent series of not necessarily being like 10 out of 10 masterpieces, but of at least being decent, right? Like that they've even people don't like Halo 5 very much, but even Halo 4 and Halo 5, people are like, these are still okay, these are still pretty good. So even when it's at its lowest, it's kind of still considered a good series. So it's it was not the best decision in the world. But I will say, I think reviews are still maybe a bit above where a lot of people would have perhaps expected, because there was that E3 demo, or E3 time period demo, where a lot of people didn't like the look of the game, and they thought it was, and we saw as well the like creative director of the game left twice. Like one of them left, another one came in, he left, or something like that. So there were signs that, and people didn't like Halo 5 that much. They thought it was okay, and the multiplayer was good, but the campaign kind of sucked. So that there were a lot of signs where it was like, hey, this game could be in like real trouble. And it has had a bad development cycle. I think the project has been sort of rebooted a couple of times internally, and like restarted. So that there were bad signs, but I'm glad that obviously we don't have opinions on the campaign yet because we haven't played it. But so it's just going off of what critics have said at the moment. But it sounds like that extra year that they gave it, the delay, was a good idea. And from my perspective, it's nice to see, because what we saw with Cyberpunk and Battlefield recently, it's like they came out like way too soon. Like they needed more patches, they needed more work before they released them. So it's nice that for this game they delayed it, and it seems to have worked out for the better, because there's some stuff with this game where it does seem still a bit bare bones, and it's kind of like at the acceptable point of being bare bones, whereas if it launched a year ago, it probably would have been like, there would have been even fewer features, and it would have been probably broken as well, and that would have been a complete disaster. So yeah, I'm happy to see the reviews. I'm excited to play myself, to see to see what it's all about. But I've been loving the multiplayer, as we've discussed.
Right, and I still have to try to play that with you, but one of my friends, so we were supposed to start Halo 5, and then I was not going to play it alone. I want to play it with my friend, and we just couldn't get together to do that. And he said something, and I was like, dude, if you were in the Discord that I'm in, you would be torn apart, because he said Halo 5 is the worst story but the best gameplay in all of the series. And I was like, oh god. whoa dude, you'd be torn apart right now. I get torn apart for my rankings. Like, it's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure necessarily, because people really like the multiplayer of Halo 5. Like,
really?
the Halo community and people generally. I mean, if you look at like Metacritic, Halo 5 has, I think, an 84. So it's like, the campaign kind of really, really sucks, but the multiplayer is pretty good. And Halo 4 was kind of the opposite. The only problem with the multiplayer, I'd say, and the reason your friend might get dragged, is that a lot of the game doesn't feel like Halo in a way. Like, there's like thrusters and like mantling and stuff, and sprinting. That was in Halo 4 and Halo Reach as well. And the sprinting is like really fast as well, and the maps are sort of designed to, I think they call it like advanced mobility. It came out at a time where Titanfall was out, and those futuristic Call of Duty games where you also had like the jetpacks and stuff. It was like, it's like a time capsule in a way, because all the sort of first person shooters were going in that direction of like enhanced mobility stuff. And for some games it worked out really well, and for some games it didn't. And I think it didn't really work for Call of Duty, and it didn't really work for Halo, but it worked for Titanfall, and it works for Apex. And I think what they've done with the like grappling hook and stuff in Infinite, I think works really well as well. So Yeah, I think in terms of that, like I can understand loving the gameplay of Halo 5. It's just I think from like a purist perspective, people might have a problem with it because it's sort of like it's sort of, quote unquote not Halo, whatever that means.
No, I know what that means now because like I hate to say this, but it has more of like a stiff feeling with like the old Halos because it's weird. It's stiff but precise, right? And this one, like the Halo 4 and Halo 5, I feel like they're like a little less accurate, a little bit more wild, and like just that feeling doesn't feel like Halo. Like I miss the carbine where it would just be like pinpoint accuracy. It's not like I'm aiming and then I'm getting like a random circle of hit points. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think the way I'd maybe describe what you're talking about, I'm not sure, but it's kind of like the old Halos feel a bit more tactical, I guess.
Yeah,
Like they
very
feel
much.
you feel like you sort of you look at the battlefield and you sort of think about how you're going to approach it, and there's like you know what all the weapons do and what they counter, and you're going like slow and steady, and you know as well that if you like overcommit to a gunfight, you can't just like dodge out the way and like sprint away and slide behind cover. Like you can't like sprint back and forth, and so you've got to be really sort of thoughtful and precise about what you do in those games. You're sort of like Master Chief as a character, he's sort of like a big lump of metal, basically. Like he's really hard to kill, but he's not this dodge rolling, slide sprinting sort of character. He's pretty bulky, pretty slow, and you sort of feel that in the gameplay. And so Halo 5 sort of went away from that, and they made the Spartans all like they're super soldiers, but now they just sort of do everything. They sort of zip around, and they're really tanky as well, and it kind of made the series lose a bit of its identity. But I think I can understand the other perspective as well of like you want to get Halo to the modern day, and Halo isn't. It's always been awkward, or awkward in one way, but also a beautiful middle ground in another way, because it's sort of not quite as tactical as a game like Counter-Strike or Rainbow Six Siege, or those types of games, or like the military sim shooters. But it's also not like Twitch shooter, like a Call of Duty or a Titanfall, or sort of a Battlefield, I guess. But in terms of the amount of health you have and the enemies have, so it's kind of like in between the two. And so getting the balance right and not going like too far in one direction or the other, you want the game to be really accessible, but you also still want to have that identity. And I think Halo Infinite, in terms of the multiplayer, does it amazingly. I think it modernizes the game in a really great way, and but also respects and loves the past. So I think it does a fantastic job.
I really think I'm gonna love the multiplayer. Back whenever I used to play multiplayers, I tended to go more towards games with a higher time to kill. I think that it's a lot more fun. I hate see first, die first. You know what I mean? Like that is not fun. Like it's not fun to me. It never has been. And I love where I can get shot in the back and I can panic, but I can turn a corner and I can start to like think of something on the spot and be like, can I get out of this situation? Because it's not just like, oh, this guy's going to shoot me with one bullet and it's over. It's over. Like I would have got shot in the back on Call of Duty and been done. Like it's over.
Yeah, the combat pacing to this game to this series is so unique to it, and so like perfect in my opinion. I mean, like the way it works in like Infinite and in the other Halos as well, is that when you're getting an enemy's shields down, you can basically shoot them anywhere. But then once their shields are completely depleted, one headshot will then kill them at that point. But if you still like shoot them in the body, it'll actually take 5 or 6 more shots. So it's like to get their shields down, it's like really scrappy, and you can shoot them anywhere, and you can like EMP them and use plasma weapons and all this stuff. But then once you've like got the shields down, it becomes like a precision gunfight and becomes more of that like I've got to try and shoot him in the head to like get him down quickly. And that just feels so satisfying, because it means that on the one hand, when you're shooting someone and when you're the guy that's got their shields down, you're going for that like perfect aim, like that perfect shot to finish them off. And that feels so satisfying to do. But then also when you're the guy who's just had your shields depleted, you know that they've got to land a headshot on you to finish you. So you've got this like opportunity to dodge out the way and to like put an object between you and the enemy and just like, throw a grenade as you run backwards, for example. And, so if they follow you, they get like blown up by the grenade and stuff like that. Like you've got these options where it's not just like, I'm just dead, I'm immediately dead. And yeah, I love the multiplayer pacing, and I love the medals as well, and the announcer for the medals, the killing spree and all that, where it gives you that voice when you've got it. It's just so iconic. There's a medal in Halo Infinite I love that's called Perfect, and you get like the cool voice when you get it. And what it's for is with a precision weapon, it's where you hit like every shot in a row and get like the perfect kill with it, with like the minimal amount of shots of an enemy from like full health and full shields to zero. So it's like three bursting a guy with the battle rifle and then having the final bullet like finish him off with a headshot or whatever. And it's just like and then you get that medal pop up and you get that voice, and it's like, hell, you just feel like a god. Like you just feel like an absolute legend.
That's so awesome. Yeah, man, I am really excited for Infinite, which is crazy because, we're running a PlayStation half Xbox, and it's been like all Xbox lately just because I wanted to catch up for this event. It's a gaming event. That's what it is. And I'm so happy to be here now, like caught up. I haven't played 5, but I'm so close.
Yeah, and they've I mean, it's been interesting from like the PlayStation, Xbox perspective, because PlayStation were really strong at the end of last year and at the start of this year, and now at the with like Demon Souls, Returnal, Ratchet, just Miles Morales, Astro's Playroom, like they were releasing tons and tons of games, of exclusive games, and they were the conversation. And then, with Horizon being pushed back and God of War being pushed back, and Xbox's own games were pushed back last year, if that makes sense. Like their games were pushed back last year into late this year, and then some of Sony's games were pushed back that were going to be late this year into sort of early next year. And so you've got this situation where the last few months have sort of been like all Xbox, and then but earlier in the year it was like all PlayStation. So it's like it's quite I don't know, it's quite cool and quite weird. It's sort of surprising how it's all worked out, because yeah, Bethesda published Deathloop on PlayStation, and that's kind of like half because it's PS5 exclusive, but companies owned by Microsoft. And then you had Psychonauts 2, you had Age of Empires 4, you had Forza Horizon 5, and now you've got Halo Infinite, and it's like they've all just come out in like the past 3 or 4 months, just like boom 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 boom, sort of at like a weird pacing. And I remember it feels like it used to be the case where they'd really spread out releases, both all like the first parties would, but now it seems like there's less anxiety about when you release a game, and you can release games quite close together. Sony did it with Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2, of course, as well, and it worked out great for them. So it's like you just sometimes get these periods of time where it's just like a first party is just like, we're releasing this, and then we're releasing this, and then we're releasing, and it's just like they combo the games together almost, and it's just a really exciting time in that sense, and it's cool to see.
Yeah, it is really a great time right now. Like just this part of the year, man, it is so hype. Like my friends and I have just been playing the GOTY contenders, trying to catch up before the awards, and which I think I'm going to jump right into what we're chasing, if that's cool.
Yeah,
but it's been so much fun just playing these games. And when people say like 2021 was a bad year for games, I just keep thinking like, have you played some of these contenders? They're really fun. They're really like, I'm having a damn good time. Do I think it's one of the strongest years ever? No. Do I think it's a bad year for games? In no sense of the word bad. It is awesome. Psychonauts 2 I haven't played it yet, but I'm playing Psychonauts 1, and it is awesome. Like what a cult classic. I right off the bat, whenever I saved and it said like, don't remove your PS2 memory card, I just felt so much nostalgia. And I'm like, all right, I'm in already. Like, I just love old games, and no matter, that's why I've been playing through the Halo collection. Like, it doesn't matter the age of a game. If a game is good, it's going to stay good, which is why I always argue, like, I just can't get behind multiplayer games for game of the year, because, in a couple years, they're going to be fucking servers down. They're not going to be playable. It's like one of those things where it's just dead. And this game is, I don't even know how old, almost 20 years old. and it's so fucking good. But what did you want to say?
Yeah, it's on this year being a weak year or not, I think it's difficult, right? I mean, first of all, it's inherently subjective. It's going to be different to everyone, right? Which years are strong years, which years are weak years. But there are, historically stronger years and historically weaker years.
Absolutely.
What I'd say about this year for me is I kind of think people have maybe some level of a bias for when there's a year with like a Last of Us or a Halo 3 or something like that, where it's like one game that like everyone's like 90 95 94 out of 100 or whatever, Metacritic, like really like obvious game of the year, game of the generation type game. But I find that those games seem to sort of take all the oxygen out of the room, and people don't talk about anything else essentially. Like that year just becomes known for like that one huge game, right? And sometimes you get two of those games, and those are really strong years. I know God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2 came out in the same year, and that was like hyped. But there's years where it's like GTA 5 comes out, and it's like everything's just about GTA 5 basically. Like that's it. Minecraft comes out, and everything's just about Minecraft. So and I'm not necessarily a huge fan of that. I like to see that, definitely, but I think that I like when you get a year where there's like loads of different bangers in like different genres that give you sort of a wider, I don't know, taste of the industry, I suppose. And I think this year has been really great for that. So despite not having this one standout flagship necessarily, although maybe some people might say Halo Infinite could be that potentially, I think that you've got this, like, whether it's Ratchet and Clank or Deathloop or Resident Evil Village or Psychonauts 2 or Forza Horizon. I mean, you've got right there, you've got like an amazing platformer, Bowser's Fury on Nintendo Switch as well. You've got like amazing platformers. You've got, and you can count Ratchet and Clank in that as sort of a hybrid action game, action adventure game. You've got those types of experiences. You've got, a great survival horror game. You've got an amazing racing game. You've got some great shooter. Like, you've got quite a lot to choose from. And yeah, I don't necessarily agree that it's been a weak year. I think stuff like Inscription as well in the indie space, I mean, it's been pretty good. I know there's been some, maybe it's like I don't know, a mid-year. It's not a terrible year. It's not the greatest gaming year of all time, but it's pretty great. I'd take this over the average, I think.
Yeah, and you encapsulated everything I was thinking so perfectly. It just is so spread out. The wealth is so spread out that it doesn't feel like one thing is dominating it. And that's what I love. It's this competition of like so many games can be so good that whenever the game of the year discussion is happening, it's like all of these games are great. Like they're really, really good. You should play them because they're not all the same genre. They're all so
Yeah.
vastly different. It's just a great display of what this industry can do. And I fucking love it.
I forgot to mention, like, Returnal, the premium roguelike game. You've got
Absolutely.
Little Nightmares 2. You've got Guardians of the Galaxy. There's so much up there right now that you've almost got like you've probably got an excellent game from pretty much every genre. People really love Age of Empires 4. That's like an RTS game. Like, you've got so many different games this year that people consider fantastic and for their specialized genre, and I think that's brilliant, really, because a lot of the time, when you have that like one standout, it dominates perhaps a bit too much in terms of the discourse, and then if you're not a big fan of that genre, you're sort of left out in the cold, right? Whereas this year it feels like there's something for you, no matter what genres you love, no matter what platforms you play on. There's something wherever you are, which I think is really, really exciting, to me at least.
Yeah, and dude, we've talked about our favorite genres to hunt or to play in general. And for me, action adventure is like one of my tops. It's like absolutely top tier favorite. Like whenever I play a game that's action adventure, I just lose myself in it. And Guardians of the Galaxy, I just finished. After my first playthrough, one whole playthrough, I have 3 trophies left. So it's like I was just thoroughly like in that game, and I did everything I could. I looked for collectibles. I was searching every corner, and I didn't even use a guide. I just fucking was in it. And the game for me is my runner up to game of the year. Like, that game is awesome. Great action adventure. Probably like one of the best I've ever played in the action adventure genre, because I think that they did something really special with the dialogue in that game, which is something that we haven't seen a lot, which they just tried to minimize how much dialogue repeats. And that is incredibly immersive, incredibly immersive. And I just remember, or I just, as I was going through, I was just thinking like, man, these characters are just so good. Like, they're the top, they're peak of the genre, like better than all of the movie MCU characters. Like, they just are so much more fleshed out, and they have story, and it's not just done in like an hour, you know. It's incredible. And I was told to play it by one of my friends, and I picked it up on Black Friday, and I was not let down. And that just like speaks to where we're at with Game of the Year. And I don't even think it's nominated for Game of the Year at all.
Yeah,
like it got a category for an award, like Best Action Adventure, I think.
yeah, there's so many games this year that I haven't had time to play that are in that conversation. And that just, it just shows the strength of the year. I mean, like, I was just thinking about it, in terms of narrative, right? Like, people love Guardians of the Galaxy. Life is Strange was a banger this year, as much as I hate to admit it. There's stuff like The Forgotten City coming out, as that have come out, and people love that as well. It's like, whereas again, like, you might have you'll have some years where the same couple of games will be nominated for like every single category, and then that's just like, that's it. I quite like the idea of like, you've got every genre has got like its own sort of front runner game, and then it all sort of meshes together really well. I think that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, I know that if we ever do like our own, game of the year type thing, I mean, first of all, I've got to play a bunch more stuff, and then secondly, I don't think we'd struggle to come up with nominations and make arguments for certain games. I don't think it'd be sort of a Dragon Age Inquisition or a Overwatch situation. I think there could be some heated debate, and I think there'd be just really standout experiences this year to choose from.
Yeah, and if we do our own Game of the Year awards, we can actually include Halo, because we can actually be flexible with our timeline. So we can do it late January or early February and just take all of 2021 games and like put it in there. Unlike the Game Awards, which tries to fit it in before the holidays to sell as many games as possible, because that's what it is. It's a marketing show.
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of as well, like, I was thinking and talking about it earlier. I mean, the reviews for Halo Infinite are, it's funny because, again, it kind of highlights the problem with the show, is that in terms of the timing, is that, it's at like an 87, 86 on Metacritic. So I think that if it came out like 3 or 4 weeks ago, it probably would have been nominated for Game of the Year this year, I think, especially because it would have come out, recently and would have sort of the recency bias thing, right? But because it's only like valid for 2022's Game Awards, I don't think it's scored highly enough where it will be nominated next year. So it's in this weird place where like it should be nominated and it maybe could win in terms of the 2021 awards. But then next year, because it's been so long ago, and there's probably, and it's not like an obvious front runner for the award, there's probably going to be plenty of other stuff that is just going to take its spot because it came out, ages ago, a whole year before next year's Game Awards. So yeah, it's just a weird like timing thing, because I think like I was thinking about it and I was like, what would it take for a game to release in December to get nominated for Game of the Year next year? And I think it happened with Smash Bros. Ultimate, maybe. I think that's the only example I can think of. And so for me, I guess it would have to be, maybe it's possible in terms of Halo, in terms of the multiplayer scene, like staying, quite vibrant. It might keep it in people's minds. But also, I think the other way that it happens is if it was like a Last of Us 2 style critical reception, where it's like a 90, 93, 94, like where it's like a clear frontrunner ahead of everything else. Then I think at that point it would be nominated next year. But yeah, it's just like a weird thing where it's like, if this game came out like 4 weeks ago, it probably would have got nominated for the main award this year. But because it's sort of in that area where it's like the critics think it's great, but not like an immediate clear GOTY, they think it's like a sort of top caliber, but not, not like a once in a generation style game, that it's probably going to miss out next year because of that. And it kind of all comes down to timing, which is a bit of a weird thing and probably not how it should work.
It's so weird too because, they implemented the player voice award this time and Halo's on that. So will it, if it doesn't get nominated for game of the year next year, do you think that it will be also in the player voice award if they do it again?
I mean, probably because I don't know if you saw, but in the Player Voice Awards, stuff like GTA Online and Fortnite and things like that are in there as well, and those games have been out, for ages. So I don't know how they determine the player's voice thing, but yeah, I mean, it could be. I think it might. I mean, I assume it'll be nominated for something next year. Like maybe like best action game or something. But I don't think it'll be nominated for the main award. And also, maybe there's not, because something that the Game Awards do, I feel like with certain genres, it feels like you can't have two of the same genre, if that makes sense. Like, I think the way critics view it and the way, I don't know, well, not the awards, because it is the critics that decide, but it seems to be that people look at it as though, like, we're going to nominate a first-person shooter, what's it going to be? And it would probably be Deathloop. And so Halo almost, like, wouldn't get nominated because Deathloop's nominated and that kind of thing. Because you see that with, like, indie or like smaller scale games as well, where you sort of get like one indie or one smaller game a year usually, and then platformers as well. Like you usually don't see multiple platformers or like multiple role-playing games nominated in the same year. It's like there's stuff where you sort of, if there's a similar quality game in like the same genre, you usually don't see both of them make it because people sort of decide like, oh, which FPS was the best, and so that's the one we're going to nominate, type thing. So yeah, I mean, it's not something that matters, but it is a really weird situation because yeah, it's nominated for the player's voice before it's even out, but the multiplayer's out and people love the multiplayer, so people are voting for it, right? Like it's in the top 5 right now, I think, so it'll probably go to the final round at this rate. So it's like people love the multiplayer, people love the game and want to express that, and then the actual awards sort of aren't recognizing it because it came out too late for a show that's meant to be about the best games of 2021. So it's just like a weird mess. Like I didn't think it should be nominated for the player's voice if it's not going to be nominated for the main thing. It's just so weird to nominate it for one and then not the other, right? Like it's like at least commit to one side or the other.
I totally agree with you there. It's so weird. But have you seen round 2 and what, like, where the games are?
Yeah, so right now it's It Takes Two is at the top with 13%. Then it's Forza Horizon 5 with also 13%. Another game that wasn't nominated for GOTY.
Yep.
Then Halo Infinite is third at 12%. Metroid Dread is fourth at 10%, and then Resident Evil Village is fifth at 10%. And Psychonauts 2 is at 10% as well, but it's below Resident Evil Village. And then below that, you've got Guardians of the Galaxy, Deathloop, Ratchet and Clank, and Fortnite.
And Fortnite is going to get eliminated because it's a joke.
Yeah, it's dead last. It's at 5%, and the game above it is at 8%. So yeah, I guess they did the event in Fortnite, swapping to like Chapter 3 or whatever, and announced like Spider-Man's coming to it and Marcus Phoenix and stuff like that. So maybe that gave the game a boost, sort of, again, because, you've said it before, it's like, the other problem with these award shows is it's the recency bias, right? Like Fortnite had a big thing that happened, and so everyone voted for Fortnite. Halo Infinite multiplayer just came out, so everyone's voting for Halo. It's like, and I think Halo would still probably make it anyway, but it's very dumb the way it works.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And, I've talked about the recency bias before, but like, it's extremely relevant in the Final Fantasy 14 right now. Like Final Fantasy 14 is being blown up, dude. It's the final chapter. Like, did you see what's it called? World of Warcraft like tried to copy it. Like they put out a like message and they were like, our final chapter is coming, but like Blizzard is in such like chaos right now that people are like, who gives a fuck? Like no one cares about you trying to copy Final Fantasy 14, but I have friends who do play that and like it's all over that. And you know how many categories Final Fantasy 14 is in? It's ridiculous. On best ongoing game, best multiplayer game, best like community support, like all this stuff. And I'm like, holy shit, that is going to get it all because of recency bias. They literally have their final chapter released like less than a week ago. You know, like,
yeah, there's like, it's like recency bias is like a double-edged sword because it's like there's like a sweet spot that they want to hit, because it's like with Forza and Halo, they came out too late to be not like they came out just too late to get nominated basically. And then yeah, stuff in like October and November has sort of an advantage, and then the other side of it is stuff like Hitman 3 and, Little Nightmares 2 and games like that. They're sort of not in the discussion because people have forgotten about them. So it's like you get this, like, it's almost like the safest time to release is probably like the middle of the year, or like September is probably the best time you want to put your game out if you want to get involved in these awards. Because it was, stuff like Jedi Fallen Order as well before, it also missed the cutoff, and then the year after, no one was talking about it anymore. The whole aspect of does it deserve the award, that kind of thing, it's kind of not really a factor. It's just like, are people talking about this game is what we're basically talking about here. So it's not like a thing of like, oh, this game deserves it and this game doesn't deserve it. It's like when the game comes out is directly proportional to sort of the amount of people hyping it up and talking about it and getting people to play it, and that and that plays such a huge role in what gets nominated, because and what gets forgotten ultimately. Because even when a lot of these outlets, they talk to all their staff, or, their review staff, and they come together with a list. And so, Deathloop, for example, it's going to be on a lot of people's minds, and, Hitman 3 isn't to some extent. So it's just how it goes.
Yeah, I'm going to play Deathloop soon, I think. But I wanted to say another thing about the Game Awards, which is this might be the first year I've not been mad about the nominees for Game of the Year. Usually I'm mad about one thing. Like I was like, Breath of the Wild, not that good. Why is it up there? I was like, if it wins, I'm going to be pissed. And then Overwatch, I was like, I'll be pissed if it wins, and it won. And then like Among Us was in there, and I was like, I'll be pissed if that wins. I just was like, every year. And this year I'm like, I actually don't care who wins. Like I mean, I do. I want either It Takes Two, Resident Evil 8, or Psychonauts 2 to win. Like, that's honestly where I'm at, just because of the like how much love I have for the first game, which I'm not done with. But man, I can't even express how cool it is whenever you find a game that is so old, and games still surprise me every time I play something new, and I'm just like, this is awesome. Like, this is awesome. So I'm really excited about this year, and I don't care who wins. Like I said, I mean, I'm gonna watch and I'm gonna celebrate.
I can't believe you're mad about Breath of the Wild getting nominated. Surely as soon as that game comes out and the reviews come in, you're like, that's definitely getting nominated for Game of the Year.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the highest rated game on fucking Metacritic. It's ridiculous. Well, it's the second highest, I think. The other one's another Zelda game.
Ocarina of Time is the highest rated, yeah. I mean, yeah, for me it's usually I'm never usually mad. I don't think I'm ever mad about what gets nominated. I'm trying to think of a time where there's been like something ridiculous to me. But usually I just like making fun of what gets snubbed. So for me, the biggest one of all time, and the one that kind of fully broke me in terms of caring about the show, in terms of from like a prestige perspective, I guess, is when Half-Life Alyx didn't get nominated, because that game came out, and I think it got like a 92, 93 or something. And it came out and all the reviews were like, this is the greatest VR game ever. It's not even close. It's a true, successor to Half-Life 2, and you see that and you're like, okay, so this is a slam dunk nominee, right? At least nominee. It's probably going to win. It is what people were thinking when that came out, because, it was before Last of Us 2 came out. So, you see that game, you see that score. The user score is ridiculously high even now. It's like absurdly high. The Steam reviews are amazing. Like, the whole gaming community loves it. Everyone that plays it loves it. The critics love it. It's for such a historic and loved IP. You're just like, okay, so this is being nominated. And then it doesn't get nominated, and you're like, wow, okay, that's weird. That's weird. It's just sort of inexplicable. I mean, well, the explanation is that it's a VR game, and not enough people play VR games, right? Because it's an inaccessible, hardware way to play games.
Right.
Valve Index is ridiculously expensive. That's why it did. But that's kind of a ridiculous answer, because it's like that is definitely the reason, but it's kind of a stupid reason, because you think the Game Awards are meant to be like the highest recognition of the art form, right? Like,
yes.
It shouldn't be like a consumer thing. It should be like a critic thing, right? Like,
yes.
Like, if you look at like a film awards or whatever, like you could have, like, if you have like a, like a black and white silent film, but it's like amazing and it's brilliant, like you should still probably nominate it, even if it's less accessible, you know, it's not about like what's the best, you know, Marvel movie or whatever. Like what's the, you know, it's meant to be like this. It's meant to be something that pushes the medium forwards. And that game did it in so many areas and is so beloved that it's like, how did this slip through compared to, I don't know, like Miles Morales? It's like
I'm with you.
It's just such a, and at that point I was like, okay, so that's, you know, and again, like nothing against the games that did get nominated. It's like whatever. I don't really care about that. It's just like, it's just when you see something that's like, okay, so this has to be nominated, like it has to be, and then it doesn't, and you're like what, like how did, and then you're like, oh, because it's not as accessible as the other games.
We were talking about this in Discord, and this is what I was dogging on Colin about, and you know, you came and you dunked on me too, which is cool. Like, I get it. Everybody's got their own opinions. But man, I was saying, like, from a critical standpoint, you hold these games up as in, like, what's best. Like, maybe you didn't play Half-Life Alyx, but if you looked at it and you're like, holy shit, look at that. That is huge for the video game industry. Hold it up.
Well, no,
that's exactly how I feel about Returnal too. It's critically like, this is a game in a genre that's done something so different and so amazing that I'm like, this is the game of the year for me. Like, there's hands down nothing else that has touched it, even though my personal favorite is Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, it just is. And that's totally fine. But when we have an award show like this, it should exactly be like what you said, where you hold up the best, like, of the year, the best of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I should be clear. I don't think you should ever like nominate a game that you haven't played. Like, it should be something you've played. But that if you're on the voting jury, I think you should have some level of responsibility to play, you know, what's considered, you know, play the nominees or the preliminary nominees, or, you know, have a look and think, oh, hey, what are the highest rated games this year? If I'm going to vote on this stuff, maybe I should, you know, play them and then decide based on that. Like, I think that, you know, and it's stupid. This happens in the Academy Awards as well. It's not the same for the Game Awards, but, you know, the people who vote on this stuff, they don't have to play all the nominees. You know, you could be voting on Game of the Year at the Game Awards, and you could have only played one of the nominees, and you could go, yep, that's the one. That's my vote. And your vote counts like a ton if you're on that. Well, not a ton, but more than the public's, obviously, in terms of if you're on like the jury. And I think that just makes kind of a laughing stock of the whole thing, right? And it's the same for the Academy Awards. Like, you can vote if you're part of that voting, you know, group. You can vote for like best cinematography or whatever, and you can vote with only watching one of the 5 nominees and just vote for that one, and you can do that, right. And that's considered fine. And it's just weird to me. It's like, I get that if they wanted to make sure that, you know, the people voting had sort of played everything, you'd have to sort of have like a smaller pool of voters, right? Because not everyone has time for that. And, you know, all these outlets, you know, everyone that's voting on this doesn't have time to play every single thing that comes out or every single thing that's, you know, really, really acclaimed. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to make the pool of voters a lot smaller, and essentially say, like, if you're going to vote on this stuff, you have to have, you know, at least tried all of this stuff, and then you'd have to take it from there. And then that would have the problem of being sort of unrepresentative in itself because it's such a small group. So I get the problems with the other angle as well, but it just seems, I don't know, stupid to me that you can have like a deciding vote on like Game of the Year, and it's like, I've only played one of the nominees, and here it is. It's like what? Like, how does that make any sense?
I totally agree with you. And it is like a hard compromise, because this isn't like film, you know, where you can get 5 movies and you could actually do it in a day. Like, you could watch them all in one day. You can't do that with games. You cannot do that with games. And that makes it much, much harder. And it's just something that I don't think there is a solution for. But you're right to say, like, it's their responsibility to know, like, even if you haven't played that game, you have to know that is a very, very good game, and it should be held up. And like, I've said this in chats and stuff, but I think that Returnal should be in the spot of Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank is just another Ratchet and Clank game. It is nothing like exceptionally special for Game of the Year. It is fun. It is awesome. It does really cool stuff with the tech, but it's not like anything defining or different about that specific game. So I was like, just swap those out. That should have been their duty. Like, that should have been their duty to know that, like, in the genre of roguelike, this is a very unique roguelike with Returnal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I've not played Returnal or Ratchet and Clank, so I have no opinion. Like, I can't be like, yeah, you're right or you're wrong. I can't say that because I don't know.
Man,
I've got no
I-
idea. But in terms of, yeah, I mean, I think that from an outsider looking in, Ratchet and Clank is a lot more accessible. It's a storied franchise because I think it helps if your game is an IP that is already loved, right? I don't think that's a controversial statement. I think if you're releasing a God of War or a Grand Theft Auto or a Halo or a Ratchet and Clank or a Jack and Daxter or whatever, if your franchise has a storied history, people are going to get really excited for it and they're going to be like, I want this to be awesome. Whereas Returnal, it's a new IP. The studio hasn't done a game as big as that, so it's kind of got stuff going against it already, and it's kind of stupid that that stuff is going against it because it's like, why is there, before you've even played the game, there's already like a stigma, or it's like already playing from like a disadvantage. So it's all I don't know, pointless, and doesn't really make much sense.
yeah, but I still love the conversation. Look at how long we've been talking about it. It's awesome. But let's focus in. Let's focus
Yeah,
into what we're chasing. We went on a long tangent.
The show as a Game Awards shows as like a conduit for debating about video games is a good thing, I think. So
Absolutely.
that's maybe the value it provides, if not inherent in the show itself.
Yeah, but it also, to people who don't play games, it is one of those things where it gives credibility. It is something prestigious. It's like, oh, you actually have an award show. And one of the things that I have been loving to fucking look at is like, I started watching in like 2014 or 2015. I actually had watched once before then, I think, because when it was on Spike, and I went over to my cousin's and we watched it there. But it wasn't something that I paid attention to. Okay, so I started paying attention in 2014 or 15, and seeing the viewer rate go up exponentially. Like, I was just looking at it, and it's like it starts out in 2014 at 1.9 million, and then the next year is 2.3 million, and then here it goes up in December of 2017, which is the year of Horizon and Breath of the Wild. You get 11.5 million people watching, and then like last year it was 83 million. So I mean, exponentially started to increase, like just skyrocket, and I just love that because it's like, oh, this is a real award show. This is a real thing that people watch, and it's just exciting because I've my whole life it's kind of been like, I mean, I'm 26, but you go to a family reunion or something, and everyone's like, "What have you been doing?" And it's like playing video games, and you kind of get that, you're gonna live in your mom's basement forever. You're a no life. You don't do anything. You just play video games, and it's like, no, it's my hobby, and I love to do it, and it's become something where it's like, oh, you like to watch movies? Well, I like to play video games. It's the same thing. It's like, it's the same thing where I'm just interacting more, and it just feels
Yeah,
good. And I mean, I don't have to prove myself to anyone. I don't care, but it's just cool, I think, in my opinion.
maybe. I mean, I'm of two minds about it because I think it resonates with me, this idea that like the more popular something gets, the worse it gets sometimes, in terms of the community and just like, I don't know, the commercialization of it and all of
True.
the like annoying conversation and all of that. And then as well, I think, like it's kind of cool to like be like a niche thing in a way. And then also I don't like that it's sort of like, I get what you mean, like in terms of adding legitimacy to the hobby, that's a good thing. But in terms of like, it also gives legitimacy to the show itself, and that's kind of less cool because it's like, I don't know if we need like another Oscars, right? Because it's like the Oscars are kind of a meme, and everyone's like, this is fucking stupid. So it's kind of, and everyone sort of feels the same about the Game Awards, right? Where it's like, this is dumb. These awards are pointless. But then the other thing as well, I guess, sometimes the way they add legitimacy seems to be a bit annoying and almost like underconfident. Like with how, like you get like a lot of like movie stars and like film directors and stuff presenting the awards. And that always seems weird to me because it's like, you don't get like, again, like the Oscars, right? They don't get like video game developers and directors to announce the Academy Awards, right? So it's weird to me that it's almost like there's some like insecurity that's like, we can't put the game makers front and center, so we'll put Keanu Reeves up there, or like Vin Diesel, or what, you know what I mean? Like, it feels a bit a bit weird that they're sort of leaning so heavily into that to get, viewers up and to also give some like legitimacy. But, I also understand that, there's, Vin Diesel is, he's super into video games, the Chronicles of Riddick games, Wheelman, Arc 2, all that stuff. There's a lot of celebrities that do really love and respect video games. So, I don't think it's all purely cynical, but I am kind of like, at the same time, it would be cool if they, instead of putting like Hollywood actors and film directors up there, it would be cool if they elevated some people working in games, either in like, on the development side or in games media. I think that would be a really good thing, for Jeff to do and for the show to do, because as you say, they get so many viewers that, why not like highlight these like indie devs or like people that, work at, wherever, I mean,
Right.
we know, Sony Santa Monica, Naughty Dog, Neil Druckmann, Corey, all those guys, right? Tim Schafer, Double
Right.
Fine, and it's great to get more and more of those come out. And I think that would be a better focus than sort of the, I don't know, Hollywoodification of it all, I guess.
Well, I think that that's happening specifically to draw an audience, which, I got to give Jeff credit because Jeff, built this. And I think that's what makes it so awesome is like, I think once Jeff hands this off, it'll go into the toilet. Like the awards will tank and some other thing will pick it up. If not, DICE will just be the Game Awards from then on, because like, I think that Jeff just brings so much like passion and care into what he has built that it makes it really awesome. But you bring in the Hollywood to bring in the viewers, and he's a salesman trying to be like, hey, this is a legitimate thing. But what I want to see is the page turn. And then you start to see the video game industry start to go over to present Oscars, because like, how awesome would it be if Kojima finally got to do that? That would be fucking awesome, because it's like, hey, that's a video game director.
It's never going to happen, though. This is what I mean is the problem, is that, like, the film industry doesn't have any insecurity about itself as an art form and itself to sort of self-perpetuate in terms of awards and stuff. Like, they'd never do that because they feel they have such like a broad range of talent and people that viewers love to see, that they do it. And so for me, it's like, I wish that the Game Awards would build out their own community in that sense. Stand on its own as like, this is us, right? We don't need like fucking Elon Musk or whatever. Like, yeah, it's cool that he's into games and all that, but we don't really need him there.
It's
yeah,
so true. And like I was telling you, I actually did a speech for school about the Video Game Awards, and it's one of these things where it doubles the viewership of the Oscars. Like, Oscars has 36 million, and last year for the Game Awards, it was 83 million. So, I mean, it literally doubles it. We do not need that. But I think that they just have so much fun being like, these are celebrities. Like, I think there's just something fun about celebrities. And you're right. I think it does show a little bit of insecurity on Jeff's part that is like, we can't stand on our own. And that sucks, but it's just kind of fun. Like, I'll never forget the E3 moment when Keanu Reeves came out, man. That shit was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, for that, for E3, that's, E3 definitely is a marketing show. Like, it's fully, like, literally, we're just going to show you a bunch of trailers, right? So, and it made sense in that context because he's in Cyberpunk, right? And that was the announcement, and it was this really hype moment. I think that was awesome, and it makes sense. But I guess when you're like, again, like, if you want to be like a prestigious award show, you should probably keep it to video games, right? There's like when the Game Awards, it was, I think, the year before last, or maybe last year, it closed out as its big announcement. Like, as the final thing, they got, like, Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez out to say, like, play Fast and Furious Crossroads, a game that turned out to be absolutely terrible. And they were like, they were basically shilling the film. They were like, oh, we got a new Fast and Furious coming out, in Fast and Furious, it's really important, blah, 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 right? And then, and here's this video game, it's also Fast and Furious, and you should go, and that, like, closed out one of the years of the Game Awards, and it's like, why? Like what? Like, didn't you have, like, the Xbox Series X reveal at this show? Like, why have you gone from that to this? It doesn't make any sense, it's like, it's just like bringing out, like, I don't know, Grimes and being like, oh, hey, she's got a new album out, and also, there's a browser game to go with the album. Like, it just feels like it's so, I don't know, it feels so cynical and like, and just, I don't know. I mean, to be fair to Jeff, though, I was going to say is that, he elevated, like, Joseph Fares. He made, like, Joseph Fares a celebrity, basically, because, I mean, it was also Joseph himself, but giving him the stage to sort of talk about his game, right, and do that amazing
Fuck the
impassioned speech.
Oscars.
But then, yeah, exactly. I'm also like, but how many other people could we have got up there that have been taken up by these like film stars and directors and stuff? How many other opportunities would there have been to get more Joseph Farris's to sort of break through and sort of become a meme and get people excited for their games and stuff? Like, it feels like a big missed opportunity, and it feels a bit forced and insecure, because also like I appreciate what you say about the viewership and all that, but they're doing amazing on viewership already, about the Oscars, above the Oscars. But also from my perspective, I'm not Jeff, and I'm not worried about the financials of the game. Like, I don't care about the viewing figures in terms of the show could just be a personal show to me, and that'd be fine. I'm not I'm not, and also I'm not too bothered if the show crashes and burns. So for me, like, yeah, I get it, but also I'm like, if it brings in viewers, like, I get it, but for me that doesn't make the show better, it makes it worse. So
Yeah, but we've also had situations at the Game Awards. Oh, actually, it might have been E3. But we've had situations where there have been directors who just fall off, and that kind of sucks. Specifically, what I'm thinking about is the woman who was the creative director for Ghostwire Tokyo, and she was like super captured by the audience. Like, people loved her.
yeah,
when
that
she
was
on
E3
stage.
though. That was Bethesda's E3 conference.
And it just seems like she became a meme, and she could have been like one of these great directors, but she just kind of fell off. I don't know where things happened, but it kind of sucks that you're right. There should be definitely more representation of these awesome directors. Cory Barlog is another big one. Like, he's kind of beloved in the video game industry, and he should be propelled up there too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's people that get invited and don't show up as well, and it's very difficult for Jeff to sort of put together a list. Like, you got to imagine, like Gabe Newell is someone I think of, right? Because I know Jeff Keighley, he loves Valve. He Jeff Keighley did documentaries on the making of Half-Life Alyx and other Half-Life games, and he spends a lot of time at Valve, and he sort of got in as a games journalist by writing about Valve, and so he loves that company, right? And he's close with that company, but you never see like Gabe Newell at the Game Awards, and so I have to assume that Jeff probably invites him. He probably invites him every year, and Gabe just says, no, and then you've got to get someone else to fill that slot, right? So, again, to be charitable and to be fair about it, like there's probably loads of people that he does invite, and that they say like, nah, I don't want to, or I can't make it, or I don't want to, or whatever. And so, and some people are just more up for it. Joseph Farris obviously loves it. Reggie's always there as well, right? Like, there's people who are just always there. I mean, it would be ridiculous and scandalous. There's no evidence for it, but if someone like Todd Howard was like, hey Jeff, I really want to do an award or something, like I really want to present one, and Jeff's like, no, like we're getting Vin Diesel, we're getting Guillermo del Toro instead, like screw you type thing, if that happened, then that would be pretty bad, but there's no reason to believe that's happening either. So they do an okay job, I think, overall.
I do too. I love it. I love it, even though it's very flawed. But I'm gonna focus this back down, even though I said that earlier, into what we're chasing, and I'm just gonna kind of go over. I finished Reach, I finished Halo 4, and then I already talked about Guardians of the Galaxy, and then I just want to throw out my rankings just to piss people off. So ODST was my number 1, 2 was 2, and then Reach 3, 4, and 1. That was my ranking of the Halo games, and they're gonna probably stay that way. Dude, I almost thought about like throwing Reach down below 3 and then 4 above 3 where Reach was, but I didn't.
I like 4. I think 4, I'm not going to argue with you about the rankings, because we could do a whole show on that, and we'd go around in circles, I think, as well. But in terms of, I think Halo 4, specifically its campaign, is probably the most underrated Halo game, is probably my Halo hot take, because that game reviewed really well when it came out. It has an 87 on Metacritic. And the main thing people loved about it was the campaign, in terms of the reviewers. And then as the years have gone by, they made mistakes in Halo 5 with the Prometheans and all that kind of stuff. And so it kind of made Halo 4 look worse. And so now the consensus seems to be that like Halo 4 really sucks. But I quite enjoy that campaign. I think that campaign's pretty good. I don't think it's the best campaign. I don't think it's brilliant or amazing, but I think 343, it was their first game taking over the Halo franchise. The first game's kind of the hardest in that they had to completely like reset everything and start anew. And that's a challenge. And I think they did a really good job with it. I felt, it kind of, there's some dumb moments. We won't go into spoilers. There's some dumb stuff. There's some cool stuff. But also I felt that a lot of the story was quite emotionally resonant in ways that Halo hadn't really been before. Halo has some like emotional moments before that. I think Halo Reach's story is, it has, a gut punch finale, and Halo 3 with Sergeant Johnson and stuff like that, those are emotional moments as well. But I think Halo 4 did a really good job. And the story between, Master Chief and Cortana, it sort of fleshed out that relationship in a way that the franchise hadn't done before, or at least not successfully. I mean, Halo 3, we've talked about the Cortana mission and how bad it is, right? Like, that mission in Halo 3 sucks. So Halo 4 is basically all about Master Chief and Cortana, and they did it better than Bungie did in their own mission. So there's my Halo hot take. I think Halo 4 is maybe... I still wouldn't put it at the top of my campaign rankings or close to it, but I think it gets a lot of shit, and I don't think it deserves all of that shit, because I think as like a first effort, and I think as a campaign, I think it was pretty good.
And I'm right there with you. I actually I enjoyed 4 so much, dude. Like all the way until around the end parts where there was just so much. There were so many enemies and the levels were going way too long for me. And I was like, I think it was just my mood and where I wanted to be. I was like, I just am tired of playing this. I played it for a very long time. And like what was going on with Cortana was getting a little bit annoying to me. And like everything was not good up until the very last, like the cutscene. And it was very good. I got very emotional because I had been playing the games back to back to back. And I was like, this is a very good cutscene. I was like, I felt like Cortana was a little overacted at points. And then that cutscene, like, I was like, fucking nailed it. Like, they nailed this cutscene. It's so good. So good.
Yeah, it's a really emotional moment, and Halo hasn't done that in the past. And so for 343 to be so, like, but, like, again, they were trying to top Halo 3, and they were trying to top Bungie, and then to be like, we're going to do this stuff with the cutscenes. I think it's great. Like, I think they get a really bad rap, and they deserve it for some stuff, but not for that campaign. I won't let it happen. But in terms of because I've seen people play Halo 4 for the first time, and pretty much everyone I see that plays it, they say, like, they almost feel guilty. They're like, I actually quite like this so far, is usually what I hear. Like, I quite like this. This is pretty good. Like, didn't people say this game's bad? It seems like everyone sort of heard somewhere that the game sucks, and then they play it, and they're like, oh, actually, this is pretty good. Like, sure, maybe it's not the best, but it's a lot better than I think the like weird like internet like hive mind has sort of said the game sucks, and then sort of everyone goes into it thinking it's going to suck. And then I think I've seen it with like 4 separate people fairly recently where they play Halo 4 for the first time and they're like, is this bad? Because I'm actually quite liking it. Is pretty much like the exact like take that I hear like every time. So I think that game got a lot of undeserved shit, to be honest, because I think it's aged pretty well. I think it looks great for a 360 game as well. It's technically impressive. Some of the level design is pretty repetitive, but yeah, I think that game's pretty good. So that's my Halo hot take, to sort of maybe save you from your bad rankings.
Well, I appreciate it because I really, really did have fun playing Halo 4, and that was awesome. That was an awesome way for me to end it, and now I have to play 5, and it's going to be
5 is quite short, which is good. I think it's only like 4 or 5 hours. So
yeah, I might do that in one setting.
Yeah, you also don't play as Master Chief for most of it, which is hilarious.
It's very interesting. But you didn't play as Master Chief in ODST or Reach either.
Yeah, but this is Halo 5, right? It's a direct sequel to Halo 4.
That's true. Oh man, okay.
Maybe they did The Last of Us Part 2 before Naughty Dog did. When you think about it, right? Like, wow, what an incredible game. That's bait. That's
right. It's very much bait. And then
it's bait from both angles, because Halo 5 sucks and everyone loves The Last of Us Part 2, but then a lot of people also think The Last of Us Part 2 is terrible. So it's like a double bait, really.
It really doesn't make sense. Like, I don't want to go into a big tangent about Last of Us Part 2, but it's okay not to like a story, but still understand that it's like a masterpiece. Like, it's totally acceptable. But
Let's not go there. Let's not.
let's
Let's
not
not
do
do
it.
it.
Let's not do it.
Not
Let's not
today.
do it. Not today. You're baiting me though. Like, so what am I supposed to do? Okay. Psychonauts 1. I just want to go back to this and talk about it because I just think this game is really cool. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know anything. And then that first cutscene where like you kind of learn what a psychonaut is and like the camp setting and like their kids and they're going into each other's minds, and then they're using these awesome terms like when you are losing health inside someone's psyche, you're losing mental health, and I'm like, holy fuck. Like, this is so weird and cool, and like just the terminology. You're going around and there's collectibles and stuff, and they're like figments, like imagination, and it's kind of like transparent and like stickers and stuff, and it looks really, really cool. And then there's also emotional baggage that you can unlock and find and stuff, and I'm just like, this is so funny how they're using these terms into a video game. And then I'm just like going through, and each level I'm having a damn good time. I'm genuinely surprised, like just what it's been throwing at me each level. And I think I'm almost done. I've been playing the game 100%ing every level that I go to. I had to backtrack because I didn't have the items at that point, but I am very much trying to 100% this game. I love it so much. And
Nice.
it's a little bit frustrating trying to find the figments because they're so transparent and they're hard to see and hard to find. But that's about my only complaint. And I think I'll be finishing it soon. So I'm really, really excited about that. But god damn, I love that game. I can't wait to play 2. I'm really, really excited to play 2. I don't know if I'll go right to 2 after I finish Psychonauts 1 though, because it's not on sale. I could go get it on Xbox, but I think that you can hear with my love of Psychonauts 1, I want to platinum Psychonauts 2, like specifically on PlayStation.
Yeah.
So I just want to wait for that sale, and it's the holidays are coming up, so I'm sure it will drop to
Yeah, they'll do a big one
something.
somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a shame it doesn't have physical copies as well. I feel like that'd be a game to have a cool box of, because it's such like an eye-catching design in those games, right? Like,
Yes.
it's so vibrant, and it looks beautiful at times, and then also sort of sickly and like muddled at times. But I think it's intentional because it's meant to be like this like fuzzy like brainscape, like almost like where dreams and nightmares collide, and the psyche exist. It's like it is such like a cool aesthetic in that sense, and like
It
such
really
a cool
is.
like tone and setting for a game. Yeah, I mean, I need to play. I never finished Psychonauts 1, but yeah, I started Psychonauts 2 around when it came out, and I never got around to finishing it. I was really happy though, because I saw that when the game first came out, there was some missable stuff in terms of achievements and trophies, and apparently they've like done patches to like make that stuff easier in terms of like getting all the figments and like not missing stuff, which sounds awesome. I didn't look into the patch because in the video where they announced the patch, something that Double Fine do that's really cool is they do like trailers that are almost like developer diaries that are quite nice, where it's just like someone just sort of talking to you about the game, which sort of makes it feel quite personal. And they said in the video for this like big update to not watch it but it's great for completionists, but to not watch it because of spoilers. So it's like post-game stuff. But that just seems really cool, and I need to get back to those games, definitely. But if you're enjoying Psychonauts 1, I've heard nothing but great things about the sequel.
Yeah, people have been setting me up saying, you're gonna like 2 is leaps and bounds above this one, and I just in my head I'm like, I can't fathom that. Like, I can't even understand what you're saying, so I'm gonna play it and I can't wait to figure it out. But there's one mission in Psychonauts 1 where you're underwater and there's a boss that's happening and the level is moving, and it actually made me nauseous just because like how, like you said, like how it looks, how it's moving. Like, I had to like look away from the screen, and I was like, oh dude, it's like I'm playing VR for the first time. Like, I'm getting nauseous. It was really interesting. I was like, I made it through, but I was like, if I have to do this again, like, oh, not good. But luckily there was like no collectibles during that part, so I just was enjoying it, and well, semi enjoying it as I was nauseous. But it's a really cool game, and I can't wait to get further in. Yeah, that's it for me, dude. I talked about everything. Like I said though, I do need to mention again, Guardians of the Galaxy is my runner up for game of the year. It's my favorite game of this year. Absolutely fucking awesome. Fucking awesome.
Yeah, I've got to play it. I bought a copy of it over the Black Friday sales, along with
Play
Immortals Phoenix Rising. And yeah, I've got Psychonauts 2 to play as well. Yeah, it's great. So I've only played 3 games this past couple of weeks, but I've played a ton of two of them. So I'll start with what I played most recently. Usually I go in the opposite order, but this game I played it for only about 20 minutes. It's a game called Townscaper, and you can get 1,000 gamer score in that game in about 10 minutes. And it's an indie Game Pass game, so you don't have to pay for it as well, which is quite cool. And so, although it's, an easy completion, and that gives you sort of bad vibes immediately about the state of the game, it's not the case this time. I think the game's quite cool, and it's not, shovelware. It just has an easy list, basically, where if you know what you're doing, you can just get stuff really fast. It's a very relaxing game. It's like you essentially are like a town builder, and it's like a 2-button game in that you sort of go over like a grid of land, and then you can build buildings with like the right trigger, and you can remove them with the left trigger. It's almost like a screenshot generating game in a way, because you can just build these like really picturesque, beautiful towns, and then share it with everyone. And there's a lot of stuff where it's like if you make like an archway, and then or if you make like a 3x3 building, and then you take out like the blocks in like the bottom middle, it'll like give you like a unique design where there's like a fishing hook or something like off the bottom of the building, or like if you mismatch different parts on top of each other, it like automatically makes like a lighthouse and stuff like this. So it's like all this design, like if you completely wall off an area as well, it turns it into a garden, and you can like put like a sculpture in there and stuff like that. So it's just this like really quite relaxing indie game where you just make a town basically, and you can just make really nice villages and get every achievement in about 10 minutes. Shout out to Macca's Guides. He's got a guide on the game, takes 10 minutes, get all the achievements, and I still recommend downloading it. It's not there's no tech issues with the game. You also won't really feel like dirty from playing it, because it's genuinely a decent game. It's niche in terms of like, I spent about like 10 extra minutes with it than I needed to, but it's not for me in terms of, I quite liked Cities Skylines on PC. I played a bit of that, maybe about 5 or 6 hours, but this isn't as deep as that, and there's not really like a goal or like an objective to the game, and so I didn't find it that fun. But it reminds me of, there's a big community of like Minecraft players that are just about building these really cool structures and stuff. So it's just one of those games, you just build cool stuff and you can look at it and show people. And so if you're into that, it's absolutely worth a download. If you're into achievements, it's absolutely worth a download. But you're not going to get much more out of it than that. The next thing I've been playing is Halo Infinite. Big surprise. Played more multiplayer. I think I've played about 40 hours, 50 hours maybe. So I've been playing it with the boys. We talked about that last time. But I've also been playing it solo. And I had a great time there as well, which is a really good sign. I think when a multiplayer game, when you can, we've talked about it before probably, but something I hate in some reviews for games is where they're like, yeah, this game has like all these problems, and they're like all game breaking problems, but they're like, but if you get a couple of friends and you play it, it's really fun. And it's like, well, anything's fun with friends, right? Like watching a terrible movie is fun with friends. It's so I kind of hate that, like, oh, but it's okay if you play it with friends, right? So I think a true test, or one of the true tests of a game, can sometimes be, can I play this game on my own and still have a really good time? And Halo Infinite multiplayer passes that test for me. So that's amazing, because if it's brilliant with friends, and if it's also brilliant without friends, then you've got a great game fundamentally, and you're not sort of being, I guess, biased by the fact that you love your friends, and so because you're spending time with your friends, you sort of love the game, and the game kind of sucks, but you sort of just love the experience. So the game's great solo as well, and I've been playing solo because I like to play ranked solo. First of all, there's a solo queue for ranked, which is quite nice, because it means it guarantees you're not going to be put against a team that are all like communicating in Discord and like, oh, he's going for the rocket launcher, he's gone up mid, he's one shot, they're not sort of all coordinating and just going to wreck you. So that's a good thing that they've got those separate solo queues and sort of team-based queues. And I love that you start in ranked with the battle rifle because the battle rifle is amazing in this game. You start in assault with assault rifles in all the other modes, which I think is good because the problem with ranked and the problem with battle rifle starts is that it's not a problem, but the battle rifle is so good that you're probably not going to swap it for anything else. Whereas with the assault rifle and the pistol, you're sort of always looking for other weapons. I think the Actman brought that up in his analysis of the Halo Infinite multiplayer, and I definitely agree with that opinion. So I like the BR for ranked because it just feels so skill based and so satisfying and just so great to use. And I did my 10 placement matches in ranked, and I'm in diamond right now. So the way it works is it goes bronze, then silver, then gold, then platinum, then diamond, then onyx. So I'm one away from like the top skill group. I'm going to try and get to onyx, but I know it's going to be a huge grind and it's going to be really difficult, but I kind of want to do it when I get some time. It's just such a fun game. I know that you sort of have a low opinion on some multiplayer games, especially in regards to how timeless they may or may not be. But I think with this game, it's just I don't know, it's just fundamentally so good and just so well designed, and the weapons have to be my favorite weapons, maybe in a game ever, but certainly in a Halo game ever. And I don't think 343 are getting credit with that right now. I hope that it translates over to the campaign because I'm excited for you to play it and to see these new weapons, especially the brute weapons, like the enemy like faction, the Banished. Their weapons are amazing. They're so good. There's this weapon called the Mangler that's like this just great pistol, and the spiker and all, well, not the spiker. The spiker's an old weapon from Halo 3, but they did a better job than Bungie. Is basically the thing, and I think I talked about that last week, but it's still just up there, and I've been seeing so many more like tricks and people using the skewer across like these like grav lifts and to like knock over vehicles, and oh man, you can like catch fusion coils when they get thrown at you, and there's such dynamism to the sandbox and to the weapon variety. It's just constantly mind blowing, and you just see more and more stuff being done with it.
I'm actually really excited to try those weapons because I didn't know. I don't know if I knew there was different weapons. Halo has maybe introduced one or two, and I also didn't know there's a new faction. Is that right?
Yeah, they're called the Banished, and they're essentially like a splinter group from the Covenant. They're in Halo Wars 2, is where they're
Oh
introduced,
yeah.
I think. And yeah, I think sort of the preamble to Halo Infinite is they sort of, they've been fighting the UNSC. So they're sort of the main enemies on Zeta Halo. And they have a bunch of weapons that they've sort of designed themselves. And they're really, because they're brutes, they're really like you can really see that in the weapons they have. Like the skewer is literally just like a giant, like essentially like a giant metal javelin fired out of like a huge launcher. And
Oh.
and and there's this like revolver that's called the Mangler that essentially it's like got like huge like bullet drop, but it's just like really really punchy like bullets that are just like pure like steel rods essentially, and it really helps like I've talked about before how much I love sort of telling a story through gameplay, or like telling you something about like the characters or the world through gameplay, and this is like another great example of that because it's like even from playing the multiplayer, it's like the way the humans design their weapons versus the way this faction designs theirs. It's like it tells you about their personalities, if that makes sense, and that's just such like an awesome thing to do because it's like not only are the weapons functional and satisfying to use and amazing, but they've gone that extra mile because they've also thought about like what would these guys use and what would these guys make as a weapon. Like if they had like science and technology, what would they like invest into, what would they develop? And it's like and the fact that that all matches and the guns are really satisfying, it's like they've just done an amazing job with that. In terms of, I was going to say something else about.
Well, I was gonna say that whenever I used to play multiplayer, and this is something that you mentioned, and I wanted to speak on, is that when you have a multiplayer game that is fun by yourself, that really is the mark of like a really good multiplayer game, and I can say that with Rocket League. Rocket League is a really good one. I might hint at maybe it would be debatable, but Rainbow Six Siege is very fun, and I played it by myself. And as long as like I found team members that I could communicate with online, it was very fun. It was very fun, and people helped me. Like I tried to get the platinum in that game, and a lot of people tried or like helped me out. Like the community was decent. I don't know how it is anymore, but at the time, it was before the trophy patch. I don't know if you ever heard about that, but basically they patched out some, or they swapped.
Yeah, they did that with
Some,
Destiny 2 as well.
yeah, they swapped some descriptions of the trophies or triggers for the trophies, and I'm glad that I did it my way first because I just rather had done the co-op mode and instead of the multiplayer trophies, which is what they did. They took out co-op and they just put in multiplayer trophies because there's like a couple trophies left on Siege that I don't have. Like I have to blow someone up through the wall with like a mine on the wall, and I just never gotten a lucky enough a situation to do that. So I just was like, well, fuck it. I'm not going to play 40 matches hoping I can get this one type of kill unless I could find somebody on the other team to literally talk to me through the wall. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I just don't know what to do. So I just kind of put that one down, gave up.
Yeah, I got an achievement in Halo Infinite I was going to mention in terms of the sandbox with the weapons. There's these new Disruptor style weapons. One of them is called the Disruptor, like literally, and it's like this shock pistol, and the other is a shock rifle, which kind of replaces the beam rifle in terms of it's like the alternate sniper rifle, and it's basically like electricity as like a damage type instead of plasma. And so what will happen is if you like shoot someone with the Disruptor pistol a bunch of times, if you like shoot them a bunch and then go away, the electricity will like keep doing damage to them and can kill them over time. Or like the other use of it in terms of if you don't kill them over time is because it keeps doing damage over time. Let's say like you get into a gunfight with someone and you disrupt them and the Disruptor doesn't do much damage, but then you like get away from them and you both back away. Your shields will recharge faster than theirs because they keep taking a bit more damage, like they take a bit more damage for a few more seconds. And to have your shields recharge in Halo, you need to, stop taking damage for the timer to reset. So you can sort of like play quite like tricky with it, where you can sort of like shoot them a few times, go behind cover, have your shields recharge, but theirs won't have, and then finish them off. And that's a great weapon, and the shock rifle's great. And also with these electricity weapons, you can chain the electricity between enemies as well. So if there's enemies stood close to each other and you shoot one, it also hits the other one. And then it also applies to stuff on the ground. So I had a gunfight with a guy where I got him to no shields, and he was stuck in this like hallway with this tiny bit of cover. And so he went behind cover to recharge his shields. And on the ground next to him was a grappling hook. And so I took my shock rifle out, and I couldn't see him at all, but I shot the grappling hook on the floor that was next to him, and because, the grappling hook's metal, it conducts the electricity from the weapon, and it chained from the grappling hook to the enemy, killed the enemy, and then I got an achievement for it. And I was like, this is so good. Like, what they've done here is just incredible. It's amazing what they've done with the weapons. So
it's a Breath of the Wild killer.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a clip online of the campaign where people have like fucked around with like getting outside of, because there's these like open hubs in terms of the campaign structure, as you know, and someone's like, they put like a drop shield on top of a warthog and then got off the warthog and hit it from behind with a gravity hammer, or shot it with a rocket launcher, I don't remember which, but basically sent the warthog flying. And then as the warthog's flying through the air, they grapple hooked onto the warthog and then let go at the peak of the like arc of the grapple, and it sent them all the way across this like massive open map, like sent them like 2 kilometers across the map.
That's what I was gonna say.
And they like landed on top of this like big like forerunner structure, and they just gone from like one side of the map to the other. So it's like, yeah, that stuff like that has me really, really hyped up, and I'm smiling while I'm saying it because it's just so cool. Like the open world stuff, I'm interested to see how it turns out, or the more open level structure of it turns out, but I can definitely see the potential in it, because Halo has always been about like the sandbox and about the equipment and the vehicles and the variety of weapons and locations, and it has had these big open levels as well. So I could see how it could, work really well and have some like super cool stuff going on.
Yeah, I saw that video too, and it was just like one of those things where I'm like, oh, that is fucking Halo, dude. That's fucking Halo. Specifically Halo 3. Like, people used to do that shit all the time. But it was really funny to watch and really cool too. Like you said, it was like 2 to 3 kilometers. It was crazy. It was really far.
Yeah, I mean, this game, there's problems with it. We talked about the cosmetics before and the customization and how that's a big problem. And it's still a big problem. and the lack of playlists in multiplayer is really annoying as well. But I think that I don't know. I don't know if I even mean this, but it's almost like you said, like Breath of the Wild and Halo Infinite. It's very weird, but it kind of reminds me of a Nintendo game in a sense, because it's like the mechanics and the movement and the pure gameplay is like so fun and so refined that it's like a lot of the other stuff, that like could be a big problem, it kind of falls away a bit, because you're just like, I have this like just this such a great like balanced fun environment to play in that's like endlessly replayable, that nothing else feels like it matters as much, because you're just sort of like, you're just going to keep coming back for more anyway. And it's like and that feels very Nintendo like to me, because it's like it's just it feels like a Mario game or something, where you're just or yeah, like a Breath of the Wild or something, where you're just coming back for that pure gameplay essentially. Although I've heard different things about the story. I've heard some people don't like it, some people do like it, so that'll be exciting as well. But then, yeah, so there's problems with the customization, there's problems with the playlists, but the core is so good, and it's like, I have faith that they can fix those issues, that, as long as your core game is really, really strong, that's the most important thing. And it's a shame, and it sucks, it really does, that co-op campaign isn't there at launch, and Forge mode isn't there at launch, because it feels like sort of fundamental features are coming later. I think that they made the right move of releasing it now, though. I would say that. I think they've got enough in the game where it's like, it's not a huge disappointment or broken, where it's like the campaign seems polished from the reviews, the multiplayer is really polished, and everything there is such like a good foundation and such a good core that you kind of don't need to overwhelm people with lots of different, like tons and tons of different stuff at once. At the same time, Halo's Microsoft's flagship game, so you kind of do expect it to have all the bells and whistles and everything you'd want. So it sucks, but it's also like, I feel like I wouldn't have delayed the game like another year, because what's there is clearly really great and you want to get it into people's hands, right? Like the campaign's good, apparently, the multiplayer is amazing. So I feel like if you were going to delay it and you had to delay it like 8 months just for Forge, it's kind of like, yeah, I can get why they released it now. Like it seems like it's pretty much ready, despite that, and it's a sign of poor management that they couldn't get everything to come together at the same time. That's obviously a very important aspect of managing the project and managing the game. They shouldn't really have like, oh, the multiplayer's all great and the campaign's all great, but the Forge mode isn't done. Like you should have people on that. But in terms of how I feel the game's fantastic in terms of the multiplayer, and I'm very excited for the campaign. And I think it was I think Mr. Matty Plays talked about how, and Chris Raygun, where it's like the problems that this game has, aside from like the customization and monitor, although even with the customization actually it's the same problem, where people are like, this game's amazing, just give us more. Like the main criticisms apart from the monetization is like, we love everything that's here, so just give us like more of it. Like give us more maps, give us more playlists, give us more customization options, give us more. Like, and that's where you want to leave your audience ultimately. Like you don't really want them to be either disinterested or sort of like, hey, all this shit is like super broken, you need to fix it. So it's an exciting time in terms of Halo and just the multiplayer experience. But I'm really hoping the campaign delivers. My third game that I've been playing a ton of is Dicey Dungeons. I've played around 50 hours of this game, and it's a roguelike indie game. It came to Game Pass. I love my roguelikes, and it was originally on Steam around, I think, 2019. I don't think it's on PlayStation. I think it's on Switch, and I'd seen some streamers play it years ago, and it seemed cool. So when I saw it was coming to Xbox and coming to Game Pass, I was like, I've got to go perfect it. I think it's a good game, but not an amazing game. Some of the characters are really great to play as. Like, each character has a different gimmick, a different special ability, a different set of cards and stuff like that. But essentially, you get cards that are basically like attacks or spells or whatever. And then you get dice every turn, and then those dice rolls you put into the cards, and then those do the attacks or do the functions of the cards. So and you get more dice as you get like further through the dungeon. And so some of it's based on like RNG. There's some abilities you can get that let you like re-roll your dice or fix your dice and that sort of thing. So it's a lot of like number crunching and some RNG and sort of being strategic and tactical, and there's these upgrade points and these shops where you can sort of change up your abilities and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a combat focused roguelike, but it's not, it's sort of more like Slay the Spire or FTL than, something like Dead Cells or Hades or Returnal, because it's all, turn-based stuff in terms of how it works. I think that, I don't know, I mean, it's a very solid game. I don't regret my time playing it. I kind of wish the completion was a bit quicker, and I think I'd recommend it, but sort of tentatively, because I feel like my recommendation is functionally not a recommendation, because I'd recommend stuff like FTL, Spelunky, or The Binding of Isaac. I'd recommend those games over this game. And then if you have Game Pass as well, you might think, oh, well, if you have Game Pass, at least, you could try it. And I agree. But then on Game Pass, I'd recommend Enter the Gungeon, because that's my favorite roguelike of all time. And then I'd also recommend Hades, which is also on Game Pass. Slay the Spire and Monster Train are on Game Pass as well, and they're both better than this game. And they're sort of card-based and turn-based. So I recommend it, but it's kind of like a 6 out of 10. So it's like, yeah, it's a good game. It's a good time. I think you'll enjoy your time with it, but you sort of should only play it, really, if you've already played and, completed all these other amazing roguelikes. So, yeah, I had a good time with it. Some of the characters, I think you'd enjoy it more if you weren't going for all the achievements as well, because there's a couple of the characters that are really, really annoying. Some of the characters are amazing, but there's this character called the Witch and the Inventor that aren't great. The Inventor, you have to get rid of some of your items, some of your abilities or cards or whatever they call them. You have to get rid of one of them after each battle, so you never really feel settled, and you can be the victim of RNG, because if you have like 5 items, you only have a choice from 3 which one you can get rid of. So you might have, let's say you have 5 items, and 3 of them might be incredible, and 2 of them might suck. But then the RNG might say, hey, you have to discard one of the items. And then the choice that you have might be between the 3 incredible items you have, and you might be stuck with the 2 terrible ones, and then your run's basically just over. So, like, that sucks. And then the Witch isn't very good either. She's like, you have to like use like a spell book to like put stuff in place, and you have to use dice to do that, but then you also have to use the dice to use the attacks and the abilities as well, and it just gets really complicated, and it's quite laborious. I think the problem is it's more strategic, but it's more slow-paced and sort of laborious to just get through all of the fights. So those characters kind of suck, and there's 4 other characters that are all great, and it's a shame, because if it was just the other characters, it would be amazing, but you have to play as each character. You have to do each episode with every character. There's 36 episodes, so 6 per character, and you also have to do the 6th one twice for every character, because you have to do it on hard mode. And then there's a final secret episode after that. And each run is about between 20 and like 40 minutes. So, you've got like 42 times that, and then 1 at the end. And that's if you win every run. So as you can see, the hours tick up, and you're going to be spending about 40 to 60 hours playing this game if you want to go for everything. So, maybe check it out if you're not that bothered about having a full completion and you just sort of want to play something casually. It's amazing as a podcast game as well. You can like listen to something or like watch something while you're playing, because it's turn-based, and there's no, you're not playing this game for the narrative. You're just sort of playing it for the fun of it. So yeah, it's good in that sense as well. But it's a shame that I didn't love it more, because it's kind of the later characters you unlock are the bad ones as well. So you're kind of like already invested. You're like, hell yeah, this is sick. And then you unlock 2 of the characters and you're like, these suck. And so then you're sort of already invested too deep. But it's still good. It's still good fun. It's really solid. I feel like I've been more negative than I should have been, because it is a good game, and I did enjoy my time with it, and I did sort of get addicted to it as well, like any good roguelike. So yeah, good game.
Dude, the way that you kind of ended that was a perfect segue to kind of the topic on the table, which is the approach of hunting. And when did you decide maybe you're not going to hunt this game?
So I got all the achievements for Dicey Dungeons. I just sort of went through it. Yeah, but what I mean is that's why my rating is what it is. Like, if I hadn't have hunted it, I'd have probably enjoyed my time with it more. Like, if I was someone who can just play the game and not care about any achievements. I think I'd have a better time, probably give it a 7 at that point. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, my attitude towards hunting is like, what I like to do is when a game comes out, I like to read the achievement list. It's always a bit of a, I'm sure you understand this as well as the audience, but there's a bit of like nervousness because you get like secret achievements and you're like, do I have a look at what these are or not? Because some of them can be, story spoilers, right? Like if the achievement's pretty badly worded, it might literally be like, kill your father at the end of the game in a big surprise plot twist, 100 gamer score or something. And then you're like, fuck. Like I've just ruined the whole game for me. But then sometimes the secret achievements are like, kill 20 enemies with this knife that you have to pick up at the start of the game, and you can, like you can only use it sort of 8 hours in. So it's like, but if you miss picking it up at the start, you're fucked. Like some of the achievements some secret achievements are like that, and then some are story spoilers. So you're like, you sort of have to decide, like, are you gonna risk seeing the spoilers for the secret achievements? So that's something I'll often do. I'll read all the achievements, including the secret ones, a lot of the time, and sort of hope that I don't get the game ruined for me, which usually doesn't. 9 times out of 10 that won't happen. But because even the story achievements are usually pretty vaguely worded, where you can't like interpret what's happening in that part of the game before you've played it. Like it won't make sense to you, and you can sort of forget about it as well. So I'll do that, and then when I read the achievement list, I'll decide if I want to play it or not, usually, unless I already want to play it. It can get complicated because you sort of read the achievement list, and then it sort of falls into 2 categories, I guess. One is that, in terms of if the achievement list sucks, I guess, if the achievement list sucks and you were interested in the game, you either sort of go, yeah, I was interested in this, but I wasn't super interested, so I'll probably play something else instead. And then the other category is, I'm extremely interested in this game, the achievement list sucks, so I'm just going to play it and, fuck my completion percentage. I'm just going to have a good time with it, and it's a game that I have to play. So, a lot of games have fallen into that category for me, and some games have fallen into the other one as well.
I'm with you. And recently I was I think proclaiming that I want to play the Yakuza series in 2022, but I will not platinum all of those games. I looked ahead and I was like, yeah, something that takes me over 100 hours, I just can't do anymore. I'm too tired. I'm like, if it was my job, I would. I absolutely would. I don't care. I'll grind all day. I'll listen to podcasts, listen to music. I don't care. I'll do it. But with my limited time, and the way that I played games this year, which I played games and then whenever I would like roll credits, I would write it down as a completed game that year, and I'd be like excited to get to the next one. And I'm not saying that like I play games just to get to the credits. I play games because I love games. But this is like a cool like checklist way to keep track of the games that I played. And I write down like the date that I roll credits, and like I just have this feeling of them. And then if I platinum them, I put a little circle next to it so I can count, and then I'll put like the number of platinum that it was. And so it keeps track. But my whole point is like, I'll look at this. I'll look at the lists. Actually, I don't look at the list. I'm not like you. I am so spoiler sensitive that even sometimes descriptions of non-hidden trophies, I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't know that was there. Or I wish that I didn't know that collectible existed, or something like super dumb. But it just gets to me for some reason. It's like, I would have been so much more surprised if I knew that. I'm like, oh, that's cool now that I know. But it's like, it could have been a totally cool moment. And that's why, like, I didn't know. Ooh, I can't say that. There's spoilers in the Life is Strange trailers, and I didn't know them. And we talked about that during the spoiler discussion. So I'm very, very spoiler sensitive. And I if I know I'm going to play a game, I'm not going to read the list. But I will go to guides and look to see if there's missable stuff. And that sometimes does spoil things. And I do not, like, on my first playthrough, I never use a guide, almost never. Because even whenever I'm looking for collectibles, just locations are spoilers to me. So I'm like, damn, now I know I'm going to be going there. And like, I know what's going to be coming next. I don't want to know what's coming next. I want it all to be inhaled or absorbed at that time. And so I'll usually do like a blind playthrough as I read through, or I'll read a guide. And if there's missable, then I'll pay attention. If there's not, then I just blindly play. And then I'll do a cleanup or an extra playthrough or whatever. And then more and more lately, I'm starting to leave lists behind. Like, I don't know if I will go back to House of Ashes. I just have to do like at least 2 more playthroughs, and that's 12 hours. And I just don't know if I can. Like, it's so much. And so I don't do that. But if I'm remote playing and I'm somewhere else, different state or something, maybe I will. Maybe I will, try to
Yeah.
get the platinum in House of Ashes or something. But my approach is generally to look at something or look at a guide. And I'm expanding my horizon of guides because I'm playing more niche games. And like I know there's a guy who listens to our show, Dangles, and he writes guides, and I'm going to use one of his guides probably for Psychonauts too, to be honest. Like
Nice.
it's
That's
just
awesome.
it's really, really cool. So
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on like the long games thing. There's the Yakuza games. I mean, it's like I feel like it's depressing when because it took me months to get every achievement in Yakuza 0. No, it took me about 1 month exactly, I think. And it was basically a month of like playing almost every day. And you look at that whole month and you're like I played one game this month and I played a ton of like I spent a ton of time gaming and I only played one game and it's kind of depressing in a way like you're like I could have played so many games in 120 hours I could have played so many games in that time and I played one game and yeah it's a great game but it's like I don't know I don't think I could ever do like a 500-hour game. I don't think I could do it. I know they're very 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 rare but yeah, for me, like the time thing is way worse than the difficulty thing. Like a lot of the time, I'm attracted to games with really difficult achievements. I'm excited to get to Hollow Knight because I've heard that game has like a really infamous end game achievement. So I'm like, I'm kind of energized and excited about it. Like the hard achievement thing is usually okay for me. It's just the achievements that are hundreds of hours that's like nope, like I'm way less likely to play the game now.
dude, I have not played Hollow Knight, and I want to. It's something that is on my list because everyone says it's so incredibly great. So that's another Shovel Knight also. But yeah, no, I'm with you. And like, as soon as you said 500 hours, I was like, flashback, flashback. I was like, oh no, because Final Fantasy 14 is 500 hours, and like my friends have been asking me to play it, and I'm like, I have no interest to play the game in the first place because I don't really care about MMOs. When Destiny started, I was just like, I don't want to play a console MMO. Like that's just not what I want to do. And so
There's something psychologically ruinous about like we've talked about Ubisoft games before, and I think like there's like a perfect length to that type of like open world or like progression based game where it's like you kind of want it to be like 20 to 40 hours in my opinion, and it's because when you have a game that's that long, like I talked about how I love Far Cry 3 because it's like such a good sized game from them where it's like everything you do feels important and feels significant and it feels like you're taking over like a chunk of the map and you're like making it your own and it's like it's a noticeable chunk. And I think there's something like really demoralizing about these like 80-hour Ubisoft games or like 100-hour games or whatever where it's like you're doing stuff and you're playing for like a whole session and you feel like you've barely moved, like you've barely done anything. You've like and it can even be depressing where it's like you spend all day doing like side quests and you just never do like a single main story thing or whatever. Like I think there is like a balance to be struck, and it does really annoy me when it's like, oh, I just spent all day doing this, and it's like, and I've done 1% of the like that's 1%. Just got to do that same thing 100 more times, and then I'll have it. And it's like that sucks. I can't deal with it, and I get that for some people it's great because they only play like 2 games a year and they're really happy with that and that they're not super hardcore into games or they just like playing the same thing over and over and that's fine but it's not for me.
yeah, and I'm with you there. And a lot of our audience or people who would even casually hunt would say like their approach is completely different than ours. They will play a game and if they like it enough, they'll look at the list and then try to chase it from that point. But I think as games get better and better about missable trophies, then people will chase more often because they'll be like, oh, I like this game, and I'll finish the list because I like it so much. And that is totally an acceptable approach. I think that's kind of how I started to get back into trophies, and then I just started to go hard on like everything. And there was a while there where I went backwards. Like I started to look at my completion percentage, and then I would go back to games that I had played and not platinumed and just play it to get the platinum, and then run to the next list on my backlog that was already played, and then just run through and be like, I could get the platinum here in like 15 hours because I've already put in 30, like I have done that before, and it's something that I still wanted to do. I want to do it with Dead Nation. I think an earlier episode I said I was going to play Dead Nation, but I couldn't get my PS3 to work because it has like double authentication, and I was like really confused, couldn't figure out what was going on, and I just was like, I give up, I'm going to play another game. And so I got to get that situated on PS3 so that I can play Dead Nation, because that's a game that has like maybe 15%, and I looked at the trophy guide, and dude, it's not hard. It's very short. It's like I have to play it on the hardest difficulty and get all the collectibles. That's it. That's like all I have to do. I already beat the game, so
Yeah,
it's just like one of those
you've
things.
reminded me of the other problem, and it is a me problem, but the other thing that keeps me away from those super long completions is that I like to play one or two games at a time, and I like to get really invested in the game if I can, and become like, like an expert in that game essentially. Like, I like to understand it like top to bottom, like everything all at once. Like, I'm gonna do everything in this game, and I'm gonna learn everything in this game, and I'm gonna experience the good, I'm gonna experience the bad, and I'm gonna then feel like after I've completed that game, I'm gonna feel like, my opinion has weight on the game, that I feel confident in my own, opinions on it, that I'm like, I can talk about this game in depth in terms of narrative, in terms of gameplay, in terms of mechanics, collectible, everything. Like, I want to have that. It sort of enriches me in terms of being able to, I don't know, find some like peace of mind in that I've experienced everything a game has to offer before having like a final opinion on it. And
That's how I was too. I actually, whenever I started hunting Uncharted, which is one of the first platinums I got, I started to realize, like, after I had gotten the platinum, I was like, I got to see things in this game I know other people have not. Like, I know for a fact that I have seen things in this game that other people have not, and that was like a huge draw for me. I'm like, this is really cool that I know this game inside and out. I know where every collectible is. I know like secrets about different things, and I loved that. I love like knowing a game inside and out, just like you said. And it's a huge draw for getting platinums, is just straight up
yeah,
getting more time with that game. And
exactly. So on that note, it kind of makes it harder for me to commit to a super long game, because I know then it's like, this is going to be your life for the next month or 2 months, and that's it. In terms of your gaming life, it's just going to be playing that one game, and so I think that makes it a bit harder to swallow as well. But yeah, I mean, it happened with, I played the Mad Max game. I like the Mad Max game. It's a good game. The vehicle combat is satisfying. The sort of Arkham style melee combat is pretty good as well. But it's too long. I'm like, I can't be bothered with every collectible, and I'm done. I did all the stuff that was needed before like the servers went offline last year, and I'm just like, I can't do it right now, and I probably won't go back, but maybe I will. But again, it's like once I've left the game and I've played a bunch of other stuff and it's months later, if I go back, I'll have no idea what's going on, and I've sort of lost some of the knowledge, and I never, I had an incomplete picture of the game, and so it's hard to go back to it. But yeah, that's definitely a factor for me, because I like to sort of get like almost like, hyper obsessed with one game and just like play the absolute shit out of that game. And then and then when I think about the game and talk about the game and read about the game, I'm like, I understand this game. And yeah, I mean, it's been great with the old Halo games when I went back to play them on like Lasso and on Legendary to speedrun them, because it's like, it taught me stuff about the design of those games that most people won't know about, like all like the secrets and the Easter eggs and sort of the way like the enemy spawns work and all that stuff. And it's like, barely anyone knows this stuff, and it's such a cool thing about like achievements and trophies that can bring to you.
Yeah, dude. And, speaking on that is exactly how this topic came up, actually. Because this is the very first time I've ever approached trophy hunting from this weird perspective of rushing. I'm just trying to get to credits right now to roll on these games before the Game Awards, okay? Does that mean that I'm absolutely like rushing? No. I told you I played Guardians of the Galaxy and I have 3 trophies left because I love the game so much. But I'm not going to clean those trophies up right now. I moved on to Psychonauts. If I roll credits on Psychonauts and I don't have all the collectibles, I will move on to probably Deathloop so that I can have that under my belt before this Game Awards happens. Because I just want to know kind of what people are voting for and like the feel. It's for me, but I'm going to go back and clean it up probably in the weeks after the Game Awards. And I'm not saying like everyone has to do this, or this is something that I'm just doing just to do it. It's like I'm doing it because I love games and I just want to see these. But I actually am in such like a place right now with Psychonauts 1 where I think I'm gonna platinum it before, or like I'll be, whenever I roll credits, it will be the platinum. I will have one. I will get my rank 101, and because I talked about that last week. There's a trophy called Math is Hard, and I'll get rank 101, and I'll freaking pop the platinum, and I'll move on, because I think that this game is one of those games where if you collect everything, you get an extra cutscene, which again, like I said, this is like that is something that people won't see if they don't do it. So it's so cool that you can do that with trophies and achievements, but I'll go back to Guardians of the Galaxy way later. Like I have to do another playthrough, I think, because, or at least, yeah, I absolutely do have to do another playthrough, because there's a trophy for getting a 65% in a compendium or something, like these artifacts. And if you chapter select, it erases that. So I'm definitely not going to chapter select, but I'll like follow a guide to get all the collectibles until I get 65%. And then maybe I can chapter select after that, or like load a save after that, and then just pick up the remaining collectibles, because I need like all the outfits, and that's really it. There's like, like I said, there's 3 trophies. So it's pretty much just collectibles, and that's it. And I'll do that on Deathloop too. I'll probably roll credits on Deathloop and then go back to Guardians, or actually, here's what I'll do. I'll roll credits on Deathloop, and then I'm going to put PlayStation down, play Halo Infinite, probably do a boys' night, which, by the way, I wanted to mention this earlier, but I kind of have like a dream where I just come into boys' night and I don't play multiplayer, and I always like shit talk multiplayer, but I just want to go in there and just like impress everyone, be top leaderboard, and then be like, fuck this game. Because like a lot of people always dog on me. They're like, you don't like multiplayer because you're not good. And it's like, just wait, like wait. But obviously, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if I'm good or not. I haven't played multiplayer in quite a long time. But back to what I was saying is I'll just clean these games up after the fact. And I've never done that before. I'd never played like a chunk of games and then gone back and like systematically knocked them out. Have you ever done that?
I did it with, there were some 360 games, I think, that I did it with, like, where I'd, like, go, I think it was, like, around the start of the Xbox One gen, although it's funny because it doesn't work, because I had, like, a bunch of leftover 360 games around the start of the Xbox One gen. The Xbox One gen was terrible for, Xbox players, of course, so, a lot of it, reminiscent about the golden days, right? So it was, like, going back to, like, finish up those games, but then the reason I say it didn't work is because I got an Xbox One at launch, and I got, Dead Rising 3 and Forza Motorsport and Rise, Son of Rome, and I haven't completed any of those games. So I played those games and I was like, yeah, these are pretty cool, and then but I really want to get, a bunch of 360 games done because I was still playing them, and then I go back and do some of those, and then it's like, oh yeah, but now I didn't finish the Xbox One games that I started, and then you just get behind somewhere else anyway. So it's like, there's too many games, right? Like, you're never going to be able to, it's like, it's like a sinking ship or whatever. Like, you're never going to be able to like plug all the holes. There's just like millions of them. That it's just, you're going to take on water, and it's going to sink eventually. Like and you're going to be even further behind than you were before a lot of the time.
I kind of love that though.
It's something where I'd want my completion percentage to be higher, definitely, but yeah, in terms of hunting for stuff, I just try to be better on like the new stuff that I play. So then it's like I've got less that I need to go back to, and then I've got like less regrets in that sense, if that makes sense. And I'll make myself. I like what you're doing with Halo, where you like go back and play them all. I did that with Gears of War, where I like went back and played all of them again, and sort of got a bunch more achievements back to back before playing the newest one. So I like that as a structure as well. It feels satisfying. It feels good going from game to game in one series as well. That's a really good feeling. So I should do that with, Condemned as well. Condemned and Condemned 2. I'm just looking at my shelf of games, of like the old games. I wanted to do that with Yakuza, finished.
But I've been told not to.
Well, yeah, there's so many of them, and they're so long. Yeah. What sucks about Yakuza as well is that Yakuza 0, which is the one you should play first. Maybe you should play Kiwami first, but either that or Kiwami, play those first. But the thing that sucks about that series is Zero is widely considered either the best or one of the best. And so what happens is you beat Zero, and then Kiwami is worse than Zero, and then Kiwami 2 is really good as well, I've heard from people. And then Yakuza 3 really sucks, and then 4 kind of sucks, and then 5 is a bit better, and then 6 is like pretty good, and then 7 is amazing. So it's kind of like you start at like the high point, and then you have to go through like this huge valley of like worse games, and then you go back to a high point again. But it's kind of like, you know, I put like 120 hours into what's considered the best one, and it's kind of like part of me feels like I'm done. You know, I'm like, I've played. It's a very awkward situation. You almost wish like the worst one was the first one, if that makes sense. Like you play like, and they get better each time, because then you'd be getting more and more like jazzed on the series, right? You'd be like, this is just getting better and better. This is awesome. I'm glad I went through that bullshit before, because now I'm onto the bangers. But if you start at such a peak, you're like, everything, like there's going to be a stretch of like 400 hours where I'm like, this sucks. This is way worse than what I was doing before. So yeah, that's a problem for that series.
That's true and untrue. I've heard a lot of people say like there's no terrible Yakuza game. They're all very good. It's just like some are much weaker than the others. And
yes,
you're right.
but
When you have that peak and then you come down from the peak,
no,
you're like,
no,
this
it's
isn't as good.
it's like a double, I guess, faceted problem, because some of the games are worse, but then also some of the completions are worse. So it's like, it's not just the game itself. Like a lot of people with Yakuza, like it's very important to specify completion and platinums, because I know tons of people that love Yakuza and they love all of them, but they've not fully 100%ed all of them. And
Right.
if you say, like, if you ask them about 100%ing them, they'd say like, I'd rather like claw my own eyeballs out than 100% them. And so I think it might be Yakuza 3 and Yakuza 5. I think 3 is just like considered by a lot of people to be the worst game in the series, and also it's really long, so that's a problem. And in terms of completion, it's really long. If you just go through the story, then it's probably fine. But if you go for the completion, you're going to be really annoyed. And then Yakuza 5, I think, is pretty good, but I think the completion is 200 hours, and the stuff in the completion really sucks. So like the 40 hours of the game to like beat the main story or whatever is pretty good, but then you've got 160 hours of like pure garbage to get through or whatever. I think that's the problem. It's sort of like there's like two components to the problem that I didn't really thoroughly describe, at least from what I've heard, is that it's both the completion aspect and the overall game quality as well. It's like those two can have different weightings and can interact.
Yeah. I don't know if I told you this, but I'm going to bounce back and forth. Like if it has like a 70 or 80 hour completion, I might try to platinum it on PlayStation. Try. That's the big word. So I'll play it there. But if it's like bad, or it has a bad list, I will just play it on Game Pass, because the thing that sucks is like I do care about my completion rate even on Xbox, and as I play these games and I don't complete them, I'm like, oh, I bet my completion rate is so bad. And like if one day they add like a master achievement, dude, I'm going to die, because I'm gonna have to go back and like platinum or master achieve all these games. You know what I mean? Like it's just something that I love to do, and I would do it, but probably not for the Master Chief Collection. I heard it's kind of miserable. From you.
Yeah, there's no way if you perfect the Master Chief Collection, you're a bigger Halo fan than I am, and than almost anyone is. You have to be a masochist to, like a really big masochist to perfect that game. That game, if you perfect that game, you would have to dedicate like a really substantial portion of your year to just playing Halo, like extremely substantial portion of your year. Yeah,
I would do it if it was my job. Just saying.
Yeah,
like I would do it.
I mean, yeah, if I was streaming it, then and people were watching, then I'd do it. Yeah, but
absolutely.
The
I think that does that conclude our topic on the table?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've covered everything.
Nice. Then that just kind of leads us into trophy and achievement of the week. And I'm just going to go, oh, actually, I wanted to talk to you about this. I might cut this section. If not, I'll just leave it in. But do you think that defeating a boss from Resident Evil 8, like one of them, is a spoiler?
No.
Okay, so then my trophy is That Sucked, and it's defeat Lady Dimitrescu. And the reason that I chose this is because last night I was playing Psychonauts, and my friend was playing Resident Evil 8 as a GOTY contender, and he beat her, and then he said, "That sucked." And I started to laugh. I was like, "What did you not like?" And he was like, "Oh no, it was a trophy." And like I thought that was hilarious. I was like, "Oh my god!" So the name of the trophy is That Sucked, and it was for defeating Lady Dimitrescu. And I just was like, that I'm using that in the podcast because that's a great moment. That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
For anyone who doesn't know, she's a vampire. That's where the pun comes in.
Ah, yes, very good.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, I know that you know, but if someone's never heard of Lady
right.
Dimitrescu, they might not get it, you know. But yeah, that's a great one. My achievement of the week is in Halo Infinite. It's called Pika's Disadvantage. It's to backsmack an enemy who is zoomed in with a scoped weapon in a match-made game. So this happens fairly commonly. It counts the battle rifle as well, so it's kind of easy to do it in ranked. But it's quite cool because you're sort of like you basically like sneak up. If someone's scoped in on a weapon, they can't see their radar. So if you sort of get behind them, you can just walk up behind them and smack them in the back and instantly kill them, and then take their scoped weapon as well, which if it's a sniper is awesome. But the reason I chose it more than that is because the name is a play on words or a reference or a pun or whatever you want to categorize it as, based on the concept of Pika's Advantage. And Pika's Advantage is in games like Counter-Strike, in Rainbow Six Siege, Destiny, etc. When you peek an angle, I'll talk about it from a Counter-Strike perspective, but basically if someone has like a sniper or an assault rifle or whatever, if they're like aiming it at a doorway and you peek into the doorway, so you like move into their line of sight so you can see them and they can see you, you have something called Pika's Advantage, which is basically it's complicated why it happens, and some people disagree on why it happens, but based on like the ping of the game and the way the game refreshes, when you peek out into someone, you see them before they see you, and so you have a few extra milliseconds to react and shoot them than they will you. So sometimes you'll see it in Counter-Strike where someone basically pre-fires an angle, so they walk out and they don't even let themselves react. So a pre-fire is when you look out into an angle and you already know before you're looking out into the angle, I'm going to shoot this spot. And so you go out and you already have your crosshair trained on it before you've even peeked out, and you step out and you shoot immediately, and you don't even let your sort of eyes register if there's a person there or not. You just do it. And if you do that in games like Counter-Strike and there is someone there, you will kill them basically 10 times out of 10 if your aim is accurate, because they won't be able to react to you in time. And that's because on their screen they might not even see you. Like, it's that fast that you can just do it and you can shoot them and they won't even see you if they're scoped in, they're zoomed in, because on their screen you haven't even shown up yet. But in terms of the server, you have peeked out and you've shot them and you've killed them. And so that's this idea of Pika's Advantage. It's in a lot of multiplayer FPS games, and so I thought it was pretty cool that this achievement, clearly it's written by someone who understands competitive multiplayer shooters, because Pika's Advantage is kind of a pretty niche thing. It's not, it's not that commonly talked about. It's a really cool game mechanic, I think. It works really well in Counter-Strike because in Counter-Strike, you have one side that are the terrorists and one side that are the counter-terrorists. And the counter-terrorists want to protect the bomb sites, and the terrorists want to get onto the bomb sites, plant the bomb, and win the round. And in that game, the counter-terrorists have an advantage. They tend to win more often than not. They have like an innate advantage in the game. And the way the game is balanced is the fact that you have two halves, and on one half you're playing as the counter-terrorists, and on the other half you play as the terrorists. So the game is sort of innately unbalanced in that it favors the counter-terrorists, but you each get a half with each side, so it's fair. And to counter this in CSGO, the terrorists get a better assault rifle that kills in one headshot, whereas the counter-terrorist assault rifle kills in two headshots. So the terrorist AK is better than the counter-terrorist M4. And then the other counter to this is this idea of Pika's Advantage, because if you're the terrorist, you're on the attacking side. And so if you have a few milliseconds of advantage peeking into angles, that really helps you. Whereas if you didn't have an advantage at all, you would probably die much, much more often. So it's kind of got an unintended consequence of making some games more fun and better balanced. And the reason counter-terrorists in that game tend to win more than terrorists is because if you're trying to defend a bomb site and you're a counter-terrorist, you can hide or you can sit in tons of different locations, whereas you know where the terrorists are coming from. You know, like, you know they have to go through, like, there's like a few choke points that are their options, but they have to come through them. And so as a terrorist, you have to like check everything. You're like, is there a guy there? 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 Whereas as a counter-terrorist, you know where they're coming from and they're walking to you. So you sort of have an advantage in that sense. So it's interesting how those two mechanics sort of play over each other, in that you sort of get this innate advantage of being the person peeking into an angle, but also you have a defensive advantage on the other side, where you can be sort of at a different elevation, or you can be somewhere people don't expect, or you can be playing an off angle or a wide angle, and you can catch people off guard and kill them that way. So it's kind of this interplay between the two that makes that game so interesting. And I thought it was really cool to give me an excuse to talk about it. And it's also something that will occur in Halo Infinite as well. And they've also sort of thought about it in that you don't have a radar when you're scoped in on your weapon. So you've got a disadvantage that way, but an advantage in that you're ready to fire. So to play on words like that and to say that there's a Picus disadvantage is a really good name for that achievement.
That is really cool. That is really cool. That I specifically like it so much because it, you know, like you said, it gave you a reason to talk about that, and it's more niche, and it's like the person who wrote that is really into it, and that's really cool.
Yeah, they clearly understand, like, they've clearly got like a multiplayer designer or someone really into these other multiplayer shooters or like Halo, and they know how all the sort of hidden mechanics work. And yeah, that's just essentially it's just a consequence of sort of the connection with the server. And yeah, some people blame like ping as well, like in terms of like if you're lagging, but I think it's more just being connected to a server, because even when you play on LAN, I think it can still happen, because like obviously what happens in a game, like when you play a game online or when you play a game with multiple people on different machines, like, you know, the way it works is what happen, you know, you see on your screen what's happening on like your machine, and then, you know, like your inputs happen on your screen, but then they get sent to the server or to the thing that's like what everyone's seeing, and then it updates on there. So it updates for you, like you do the input, it updates on like your Xbox or whatever, reads it, and then it sends it off, and then it updates on like the main server. And that's why like, and it's really, really noticeable when someone has like a bad connection, because when you're trying to play with a bad connection, what you're doing on your screen isn't actually happening on the server. So you get like this weird, like messed up stuff where you're like teleporting around and the server's trying to catch up with what your console's doing and all that kind of stuff. So it's, you know, it's based on the disconnect between what's happening for you on your local machine versus the machine that's sort of got, you know, that's the main thing that everyone's connecting to. So yeah, it's just a really cool mechanic that it's good that the game highlights that kind of thing, and hopefully, you know, educates some people about it as well.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I'm excited. I mean, yeah, I'm just so excited about the OLED and about Halo and about the Game Awards as well. Even though they suck, they're still fun. You know, just don't take them too seriously. But yeah, no, it's been a good week of gaming, and this week's also going to be awesome.
I agree. I think this week is going to be really fucking awesome, and I can't wait to play more games. I'm really fucking excited. All right, well, thanks for listening. Happy hunting. Peace out.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to Complete Edition. If you like the content, consider supporting us on patreon.com/completionclub. If you have any questions or would like to reach us, email completionclub@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Complete Edition.